What if the one thing destroying your confidence, killing your relationships, and silently eating you alive from the inside was never your fault to begin with? What if the heaviest weight you carry every single day is not failure, not rejection, not heartbreak, but a 6-letter word that nobody ever talks about openly? What if I told you that this invisible force has been whispering lies into your ear since childhood, telling you that you are not smart enough, not beautiful enough, not worthy enough, not lovable enough, and you believed every single word? What if the moment you finally name this monster out loud, in front of real people who truly see you, it loses every ounce of power it ever had over you? What if vulnerability is not your weakness, but actually your greatest superpower that the world desperately needs to see? Stay with me, because what you are about to hear will not just change how you think. It will change how you breathe, how you love, how you live, and how you finally stop running from yourself. This is not just a speech. This is your permission slip to be magnificently, unapologetically, courageously human, and it starts right now. What if the most dangerous thing in your life right now is not outside you, it is inside you, hiding in the dark corners you never allow anyone to see? What if that invisible force has a name, and that name is shame? We live in a world that celebrates perfectionism, applauds achievement, rewards performance, and punishes vulnerability. We scroll through perfectly filtered lives on social media and conclude that everyone else has figured out the secret to living except us. We sit in meetings pretending we understand. We smile at parties pretending we are okay. We go home at night and stare at the ceiling wondering why, despite everything, we still feel fundamentally irreparably broken. That feeling has a name, and its name is shame. Not guilt, not embarrassment, not regret, shame. And here is the most important distinction you will ever learn about yourself. Guilt says, I did something bad. Shame says, I am bad. Guilt focuses on behavior. Shame attacks your entire identity. Guilt says, I made a mistake. Shame says, I am the mistake. And that difference, that tiny, devastating difference, changes everything about how you live, how you love, and how you see yourself in this world. Shame is the most primitive, most painful, most destructive human emotion we experience. It is the fear that if people truly see who we really are, our messiness, our contradictions, our failures, our secret fears, they will conclude that we are not worthy of love and belonging. And belonging is not a luxury. Belonging is not a nice to have. Belonging is why we are here. Connection is what gives our lives meaning and purpose, but shame shuts the door on connection. It locks you in a room alone and throws away the key. And what makes shame truly lethal is not the shame itself. What makes it lethal is the silence around it. Think about the last time you felt genuine shame. Not embarrassment, shame. That hot, crushing, suffocating feeling where you want to disappear from the face of the earth. That moment where every cell in your body screams hide. Did you talk about it? Did you call someone and say, I need to tell you something because I am drowning in this feeling? Or did you do what most of us do, swallow it, bury it, pretend it never happened, and carry it around silently for years like a stone in your chest? We do not talk about shame because talking about shame feels shameful. And so it grows in silence and darkness and secrecy. Shame grows exponentially. It wraps around your self-worth and squeezes until you can barely breathe. It whispers that you are uniquely broken in a way that no one else would understand. It convinces you that you are the only one who feels this way, that everyone else is somehow doing life correctly while you are secretly falling apart. But here is the truth that will shake your entire world if you let it land. Shame is universal. Every single human being, every person you admire, every person you envy, every person who looks like they have it all together, every single one of them knows shame intimately. It is the one experience that is absolutely, completely, universally human. The only people who do not experience shame are people who have no capacity for human connection or empathy. Shame is the price of admission to being fully alive. So if we all feel it, why are we all suffering alone? Because we have been taught by culture, by family, by religion, by social media, by every system around us that our worthiness is conditional, that we are worthy of love only when we are successful, only when we are thin, only when we are productive, only when we are strong, only when we never ask for help, only when we never break down, only when we perform the version of ourselves that the world has decided is acceptable. And when we inevitably fall short of that impossible standard, and we all do, every single one of us, shame rushes in to fill the gap. Now here's where it gets particularly fascinating and deeply important. Shame does not look the same for everyone. The experience of shame carries dramatically different weight depending on who you are and what the world expects from you. Women navigate a crushing, contradictory web of expectations. Be successful but not too ambitious. Be confident but not arrogant. Be sexy but not promiscuous. Be a perfect mother, but also have a brilliant career. Be strong, but also be soft. Be everything, do everything, never complain, never struggle, never show the cracks. Women are expected to be all things to all people simultaneously, and when they inevitably cannot sustain that performance, shame floods in mercilessly. Men, on the other hand, face a shame experience that is equally brutal but carved from completely different stone. The messaging men receive from the time they are small boys is devastatingly simple. Do not be weak. Do not be scared. Do not be emotional. Do not need help. Do not be vulnerable. Suck it up. Man up. Be a rock. Be unbreakable. And if you ever crack, if you ever show fear, sadness, uncertainty, or need, you are not a real man. You are something lesser, something shameful. And so men go silent. They stuff everything down and build walls so thick that not even the people who love them most can get through. And then we wonder why men suffer quietly. We wonder why men struggle to ask for help. We wonder why the conversations men have with each other stay permanently shallow. It is because vulnerability has been coded as weakness. And weakness means shame, and shame means exile from the group. But here is the devastating irony of all this armor we build to protect ourselves from shame. The armor does not protect us. The armor isolates us. The walls we build to keep shame out also keep love, connection, creativity, and joy out. You cannot selectively numb difficult emotions. When you numb shame, you also numb gratitude. When you numb vulnerability, you also numb belonging. When you shut the door on pain, you accidentally shut the door on everything worth living for. The armor does not save us. It just makes us feel alone in a more comfortable way. So what is the answer? What actually works? Empathy. Raw, radical, genuine empathy. Shame cannot survive being spoken and met with empathy. It is biologically, emotionally, structurally impossible. When you take your shame, your most terrifying, most hidden, most protected truth, and you speak it out loud to someone who responds not with judgment, not with advice, not with fixing, but with genuine me too, the shame dissolves. Not perfectly, but it dissolves. That is the magic. That is the medicine. Empathy is the antidote to shame. But here is the catch, and it is a significant catch. In order to receive empathy, you first have to be vulnerable. You first have to take the risk of being truly seen. You have to open the door and let someone actually look at you, the real you, not the performed version, and trust that what they find will not destroy their love for you. And that is terrifying. That is the most terrifying thing a human being can do. Because the possibility of rejection, of being seen and then abandoned, feels like death to the part of us that desperately needs connection. But let me tell you what is even more terrifying than vulnerability. Living your entire life behind a wall. Going through decades of relationships where no one truly knows you. Achieving everything the world said would make you happy and still feeling hollow. Lying on your deathbed surrounded by people and feeling profoundly, achingly alone because you never let anyone close enough to actually love the real you. That is more terrifying than vulnerability. Vulnerability is not weakness. I want you to hear this clearly. Vulnerability is not weakness. Vulnerability is showing up when you cannot control the outcome. Vulnerability is saying, I love you first. Vulnerability is asking for help when you are drowning. Vulnerability is creating something and sharing it with the world even though it might be criticized. Vulnerability is starting the hard conversation. Vulnerability is admitting you were wrong. Vulnerability is saying, I am struggling. That takes extraordinary courage. The kind of courage that our world desperately needs more of. Because here is what happens when people start practicing this kind of courage. Everything changes. Relationships deepen. Creativity explodes. Leadership transforms. Communities heal. People who had been performing their way through life start actually living it. People who had been surviving on the surface start diving deep. People who had been whispering, I am not enough, start slowly, imperfectly, magnificently believing I am enough. Not because they achieved more, not because they fixed everything that was broken, not because they finally became the perfect version of themselves that shame kept demanding, but because they made the brave, radical, revolutionary decision to show up anyway, exactly as they are, in all their beautiful, complicated, imperfect humanity. This is the work, not the comfortable work, not the easy work, the real work. The work of looking at your shame directly and saying, you do not get to define me. You do not get to decide my worth. You do not get to keep me small and silent and disconnected. I see you, I name you, and I choose something bigger than you. I choose connection over protection. I choose courage over comfort. I choose vulnerability over armor. I choose to be seen, fully, completely, terrifyingly seen, and to trust that being seen is the only way to be truly loved, because you are not your worst moment. You are not your biggest failure. You are not the harshest thing anyone has ever said about you. You are not the version of yourself that shame constructed in the dark. You are something far more complex, far more interesting, far more worthy than shame ever allowed you to believe. And the world, this broken, struggling, desperate for connection world needs you to believe that, needs you to live from that place, needs your authentic, imperfect, courageous voice in the conversation. Because when you show up real, you give other people permission to show up real. When you name your shame, you help someone else name theirs. When you choose vulnerability, you make the world fractionally safer for vulnerability to exist. That is how cultures change. That is how families heal. That is how we stop passing our wounds to the next generation. One conversation, one moment of courage, one person deciding that their authentic humanity is worth more than the performance of perfection. What if that person is you? What if today is the day you stop hiding? What if the most powerful thing you ever do is simply finally tell the truth? We began this journey with a question. What if the thing destroying you from the inside had a name, and naming it could set you free? Today we discovered that the name is shame. We learned the crucial difference between shame and guilt, how one destroys identity while the other drives growth. We understood that shame is universal, that it operates in silence and feeds on secrecy, and that it looks different for men and women but cuts equally deep for everyone. We recognize that the armor we build to protect ourselves from shame is the very thing that keeps us disconnected from everything we love. And we discovered beautifully, powerfully, hopefully, that empathy is the antidote, that vulnerability is not weakness, but the most profound form of courage. That connection is possible when we dare to be seen. The path forward is not about eliminating shame entirely. That is not possible for any feeling, breathing human being. The path forward is about developing what we might call shame resilience, the ability to recognize shame when it arrives, to speak it before it silences you, to reach for connection before isolation pulls you under, and to remember your fundamental unconditional worthiness of love. You are enough. You have always been enough. You were born enough. And no amount of failure, criticism, rejection, or shame can change that foundational truth about who you are. Go live accordingly.